All right, welcome friends to another episode of Global Card Collectors. Today we have a very special guest. It's me, Will, of course, and you can find me at Card Adama on Instagram. But today I have Justin McCullough, who's literally the guy who wrote the book on rugby cards. So we're very, very lucky to have him. Let me tell you a quick story about Justin before I get Justin to just kind of introduce himself. I've been looking at a few New Zealand Facebook groups lately, and there have been a lot of rare cards come up. And whenever there's some kind of debate about what the card's value is or where it comes from, you'll always find a New Zealand collector who will type a message such as this, which will be, let's ask Justin, because if Justin doesn't know, then it's not worth knowing. So that's who he is. He's the guru of rugby cards. So welcome, Justin. Thank you so much for taking out the time to do this. It's a real pleasure for me. So please just give us a little quick introduction about who you are and your connection to rugby cards.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, thanks for the embarrassing intro. Yeah, look, I'm just a guy who loves rugby, really. Played, gosh, I'm in my 50s now. So started playing when I was sort of 6, gave up for a few years and then picked it up again at around 13. Played up until I was 40. Never at a high level. I was a bit of a crap rugby player, to be honest, but I still love the game. Based in Christchurch, New Zealand, always been here for my entire life. Always loved rugby, always loved collecting. And when I say always loved collecting, it's never been just about cards. You know, as a young fellow, I used to collect birds' eggs and coins and stamps and you name it. I was just I think you're a born collector or you're not, and I was one of those born collectors. So, that's sort of a wee bit about me.
What about rugby cards specifically? Do you remember your first rugby card that you received, or what was it, or what set was it, or what do you remember? What's your earliest memory of rugby cards?
Oh man, so I can almost quite clearly remember it actually. So I started collecting when I was around 7 years old, just a wee fella. And I remember I used to go and play at my cousin's house all the time. And this is way back in the 70s, you know. And Weet-Bix cards were a big thing back then.
Yeah, cool.
I started collecting Weet-Bix cards and, I'd get them all and sort them into sets and that sort of thing. And I don't know how I got them, whether I got them off my cousin, but I remember some of the 1968 bubblegum cards, Playtime gum bubblegum cards, the coloured red, the blue, the yellow background ones. And I remember it, 7 or 8 years old, laying on there on my cousin's lounge floor, sorting out these old 1968 bubblegum cards, So that's probably my earliest memory of rugby cards. Those ones there, yeah.
Well, how many cards do you have now on you? Have you been able to count them out?
Oh, yeah.
I've just seen your library of cards, by the way. Yeah. It's great to see that you have this obsession with cards like I do.
Yeah, look, it's mad. I think last count I had around different ones in my actual collection. And when I say different ones, but I do have some doubles because with the modern sets, I try and get a set complete set unsigned, and then I'll get a second set which I try and get signed by the players, which is cool. A sort of wee subsidiary obsession. With the cards in my actual collection, about 23,500
that's
rugby
cool.
cards. Yeah. That's ones in my collection, and more than that is duplicates and spares and that sort of thing. So
yeah, cool. Very, very cool. I've been wanting to ask you for a while about your book. How long did it take for you to write it? How do you go about doing your research for it? And I know that you've told me as well that there's going to be there a new edition to that book coming up. So let's just talk about your book for now. So how long did it take for you to write it? How did you end up going about doing your research?
Wow, the funny thing is, I get a bit weird about people saying, I've written a book, because to me, people who write books are clever novelists, real clever thinkers, amazing plot twists and that sort of thing. Mine's a lot more basic. All I feel I did was collect information, and just sort of put it together in a sort of
Yeah,
readable
that's an
form.
art in and of itself, though, to be fair. I mean, for someone like me, I don't know if you know, I think I've told you this. I think I might have emailed it to you. But when I was looking at that set of signature series, I just thought that they were facsimile autos. I did not know that they were on-card autos because the signatures are so clean. So as soon as I saw them come up for sale, I was like, thanks to the book, I'm buying that card right now. It's an on-card auto, and I was very, very happy in doing that.
Oh, it's a lovely set, that one.
Yeah.
That 97 signature
right.
series Anita, yeah. I never set out to write the book. When I started seriously collecting, because I mentioned I sort of started at 7, I actually gave up at 11 years old, and that was when they had a big collections day at my intermediate school, and I proudly took my card collection to school, aged 11 years old, and then after the collection show, they went missing, and then about 3 months later, a friend of mine came into the class and said, "Oh, Justin, your cards are in the library." So I went to the library to go and pick them up, and they'd basically, anyone who collects cards know that condition is absolutely paramount. So they'd laid out all the cards from all the sets, and they'd basically put that sticky book cover clear film over them,
brutal.
so they could display them as a poster in the set. All my albums, the Weet-Bix card albums, they put the school stamp right through them all. So basically, they destroyed my collection. So I sort of gave up at 11. I was so disheartened. And then, what was I, about mid-20s? I was sort of walking down Manchester Street in town here, and there was a collectibles shop called Sterling & Co. And Sterling & Co., they had coins and stamps and medals and cards. They were about the only card shop we had back then. And I saw in the window this set of cigarette, well, I know them now to be cigarette cards, these 1927 footballers, or All Blacks, 1927 All Blacks. Oh, they look so cool. And suddenly all these memories of, when I was a young fella collecting cards all popped into my head. I just loved rugby so much. I was collecting rugby badges at the time, and rugby beer labels, or beer labels in general. And I thought, oh, they are so cool. So anyway, went into the shop, bought the set of cigarette cards, bought another one of 1930 British rugby players' cards. So it was like mid-90s. Walked out, boom, collecting passion took over again. And so I went home, started collecting. Back then there was nothing, as in there was no internet. Internet was
just becoming a thing in the early 90s.
Just becoming a thing. There was no Trade Me. Trade Me didn't exist. eBay had only just started, like that year, 95 or something. It had only just started on eBay. And so there was, I knew, so I guess this was probably a couple of years before that, when I actually found these cards. There was just nothing. No, so might find some old magazine somewhere, or somehow you'd find at the back of a magazine some club overseas that had card collectors, and you might send off a wee advert saying, "Oh, anyone who's got cards, write to me," because there's no email, it was just writing. So I had no idea about what rugby cards were out there. I knew I wanted some. So I just started writing a list. So whenever I found out information on something, I just put it in a wee list of cards I wanted,
Yeah, wow.
And it eventually just sort of built bigger and bigger, this list of cards. And then I'd write the full number of cards in the set and what cards were in the set. And I thought, I got those 5, so I need these other 10. And it just grew and grew, this list. And it might have been about 2-3 years later, this realisation came. I thought, holy crap, this is sort of like the start of a book, It's like, your listeners won't see this, but, this was the original rugby card book. This,
wow.
And all it was just a list of cards I was writing.
Like a checklist.
Like a checklist, yeah. And then I ended up going, oh, okay, well, there's a wee bit more information. I'll just put that in. And next thing you know, I thought, wow, that's the start of a book.
Yeah.
So yeah, no plans to do it, just sort of happened, really. And that was probably 1998 was when I really come to the realisation, and then finally published it 10 years later, in 2008, yeah.
Wow, so it's more a labour of love, and just like you said, it's you being almost like a curator of cards yourself and going, if this is the set that I want, then these are the cards that I need, because you found a checklist or you've looked up information. And wow, that's fantastic. That's really great.
Labour of love is exactly it. I never looked to publish it for anyone else.
Yeah.
It was just for me, you know. But then it got to the point where it was like, wow, maybe other people might like it, you know. But certainly no plans to produce a book, and lots of different iterations as time went on. But yeah, finally got it published in 2008.
Great. And so from you being a published rugby card author, what kind of connections have you made in the collecting community?
A lot. Yeah, a lot. So a lot of people overseas, have contacted me and bought the book. So there's some really good guys in the Rugby Memorabilia Society over in the UK.
Okay.
There's guys in the society from all over the world. But it's not even just the rugby card book. You probably know I'm part of this card collecting society. Mm-hmm. Society sounds like, I don't know, a secret society, doesn't it? But a card collecting club, and so, between guys contacting me from the book, being part of a card collecting club, met heaps of people, lots of contacts.
Yeah, I mean, you were telling me about a couple of them earlier on, which is interesting, because obviously when we were in Turkey, we were able to kind of connect with a few locals here who collected cards.
Yeah.
And so now I'm looking to do the same, and I think I've found the right way to start things off. You were saying to me before too that there's going to be a national in New Zealand as well. So that normally happens in May, is that right?
Yeah, it certainly does at the moment. So, because obviously the States, when you look at the States.
Yeah, the national there is just,
it's massive. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So, so the club we have here in New Zealand, it's called the Cartophilic Society of New Zealand. Now, that's an old term that came over from England. They've had sort of a cartophilic society, which I think is Latin for lover of cards.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, they've had a cartophilic society for many, many years. The New Zealand one set up in like the 1970s.
Okay.
And every year, because it's a incorporated society, it has to have an AGM. So every year it would choose a different place in the country, and it would have an AGM, its annual general meeting, and it would set up a card fair or card show at the same time. So sometimes it'll be in Dunedin or New Plymouth or Napier. We'd try different places around the country just to try and build, interest, knowledge of cards, that sort of thing. That's sort of part of the work, I guess, the society. It sounds, I don't know, but the society sounds such a weird word.
Yeah,
the club, does, it's trying to promote the hobby. So we used to do this, and then sort of we had a big one planned here in Christchurch, actually, Addington Raceway. We thought, you know what, let's try and make, because they're normally small affairs, just quite small. I thought, let's make this big. Let's get, Addington Raceway, big hall, and we'll invite some other clubs and have a real massive collectors fair. Let's invite the stamp club and the postcard club, and we'll just have this massive big collectors fair / show. And then COVID hit. I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, that blew it out. Next couple of years, nothing. And because we normally have turnabout, we'll have a show in South Island, then one in North Island, back down to South Island, one in North. And then we set one up last year, actually. No, the year before. And in Johnsonville, and out of Wellington. And we just did a bit more promoting on the Facebook groups and that sort of thing. And it was like, it sort of went off. It was like, holy moly.
How many people do you think you had there?
Oh, I mean, nothing like the American
Yeah,
shows,
of course.
but we're, hundreds of people through the door. And, it was like packed, it's like, wow, sometimes struggling to walk down between the tables because it was so many people. And it was like, one of the dealers, a postcard dealer mainly, actually, but he said in the 20 years, that was the best show he had ever had. Not only that, he said it was double the takings of his previous best. Double in 20 years. He says it was just huge for him. So that went off in Johnsonville last year, or so I should say earlier this year. We went to Upper Hutt, and we thought...
I saw you advertising for it online because I'd just been getting ready to come home. So when I saw it, I was so upset because I knew that I wouldn't be here in time for it.
Oh, and the thing is, we thought, well, let's build on the success of Johnsonville, because that was like the biggest card show New Zealand's ever really had. And so let's build on it. And actually, when I say let's build on it, there's a guy up in Wellington, so one of the... he was the president of the card club. He's now a committee member because he sort of stepped down and let someone else do the role. But he organised it, and boy, he put some work into it. And this show, earlier in May this year, holy smokes, it was twice the size, and people like you wouldn't believe. It was so good, so many tables, of cards. And next year, we're looking to make it even bigger again.
Next year's in Upper Hutt, right?
So Upper Hutt, same place. It was so successful. We thought it's like you just got to keep building on it. This is starting to get almost like the American shows, with the people starting to know about it. And
I think cards in the last few years have definitely, during COVID, we know that the card market in general has just picked up so much around the world. And even in New Zealand, especially in New Zealand and Australia are big markets for such small countries.
Yep.
We love collecting stuff.
We do. We do. Yeah, that's one thing New Zealanders do. Yeah. I don't know why. Yeah. And one thing it's a bit weird, actually, is, being part of this card club, you see sort of where people are. And it's places like, dare I say it, Palmerston North. There are, of all places, in the middle of sort of, I won't say in the middle of nowhere, I shouldn't say that, Palmy's a lovely place. Yeah. But there are so many collectors in places like Palmy. There's almost more collectors who join clubs and actively take part than there is in Auckland.
Wow.
It's
in proportion to the population, then there's a huge amount of people.
Yeah, a lot of collectors in small sort of towns and that sort of thing, I don't know whether it's because there's not much else to do. But,
who knows? Or maybe it's just like it's a fun thing to do. There's tradition there, all sorts of different reasons. But that would be something to explore down the line too, I think.
Yeah. But
I'm looking forward to the National, I must admit. I mean, I've never been to a card show as such, so... Yeah. If there are smaller ones beforehand and I have a chance, I'm definitely going to hit those. But the National, I'll be absolutely a starter for that, which will be fun.
Yeah, they're so rare. That's the trouble in New Zealand. It's not like the States. They just have so many. I keep bringing up the States, but
because they are the big market. Let's be honest. There's like 90% of card collectors are from there.
Even England. England have a lot of. They do have a lot of shows as well.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of clubs and sub clubs and that sort of thing, but. In New Zealand, it's really only the society, only the club that has put these shows on, or these club meetings, card shows on. So, because it's never been a business, it's never been enough money in it for businesses to run shows, So it's just been fans, collectors and fans like us.
and weirdos like us.
That's it. Yeah.
So I do have some more questions to carry on with. Can you tell me like a memorable interaction you've had, or an interesting story that you've had as a collector, or maybe that a member of the card collecting society?
Yeah. Oh goodness. There's been lots, really. And I suppose if I'm to sort of think about that, one thing that sort of springs to mind really is or moment of realisation. We sort of briefly sort of touched on it before us. When you asked the question, it was like, it's amazing in this day and age where you think anything that is out there to be discovered would have already been discovered. But new weird stuff pops up all the time, even in little old New Zealand here, you know. So, some of these card shows. So one we had in New Plymouth, wee small place, New Plymouth, but it was a nice wee card show, I don't know how many people we had come through. Some, not huge amounts, but some. And anyway, we popped off for lunch. A group of us, about 6-7 of us, popped off for lunch, and sort of walking back. And outside the entrance of the show, there's a wee huddle of people. About 7 or 8 people huddling around. And so we're walking back. Sort of popped our nose in, and one of them goes, "Oh, here he is. He'll know about them," referring to me. And so, what are they looking at? And I went over and said, look, we don't know what these are. Looked at them and I knew instantly what they were. So basically there's these very, very rare cards put out in 1928 in Napier and, we thought Napier and Hastings. So the ones we saw were either blank-backed cards or they had this like purple stamp advertising Beck's Pharmacies in Napier and Hastings. In 1938, the earthquakes happened in Napier, Hastings, 1931. So we thought, well, these cards are rare because earthquakes happened. If they were in the local area, half of Napier and Hastings was destroyed. And so all these cards are probably destroyed with it. Anyway, these cards, and there were blanked back ones. There were ones with like H. Tingy written on the back, other ones with Crystal Photographic House on the back. It was like, I know what these cards are. We thought these were Beck's Pharmacy cards. But anyway, 29 of these cards popped up. We only knew of 11 of these cards before that. That's all we knew about. And it was just incredible. And then later research found that, oh my word, they weren't Beck's Pharmacy's cards, even though we saw some with these stamps on.
Sure.
This H. Tingy was a photographer in Wellington who owned a business called Crystal Photographic House. And it looks like this photographer would sell blank-backed of these cards out there. And
stamp it.
And whatever company or business bought them would put their own stamp on them and then hand them out with purchases or whatever was done. So
what were on the front of the cards?
Just 1928 All Blacks. So set of 33, the numbered. So we now know there's 33 of them. But even now, we're still half a dozen. We have no idea, 3 or 4. We still don't know what the actual card is. They've never been seen. But now we know 29 of them, So it's just like these, out of the blue. And that was like, the guy, and this is the cool thing. People, these been sitting on, mum and dad just died. They've been sitting on the mantelpiece for however long. Just brought them along. Next thing you know, he's sitting there with 29 little bits of cardboard and worth $2.5 to $3 grand. It's like, holy moly.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was lucky enough to actually get about 26 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's great.
So, just sort of, stories like that,
And I think it adds to that idea of kind of found treasure when you see them in person. So we just went and looked at your collection earlier on, and to see those cigarette cards over 100 years old, and the color still pops. It pops even more than the modern cards. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a work of art. It's beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And archival, and it's just got a lot of nostalgia. And some of the New Zealand rugby players that you have in those cards, it's just like, I know this guy by reputation. Like the Dave Gallagher card is one that I already still remember now. I was like, wow.
Yeah, no, exactly. Some of those, and they're probably some of my favourite sets.
Sure.
To be honest, that Dave Gallagher one was Teddy and Co. And that's this is the cool thing about card collecting, is it? You know, the stories that go with these. So, yes, there's this 1907 set of 50 footballers, you know, of which 30 are, you know, 1905 All Blacks.
Yeah, wow.
And, you know, including the Dave Gallaghers and the like. But then you learn about Teddy & Co. This is the cigarette card company that produced them, you know, and the weird story there was it was sort of a young, very small tobacco company at the time. And, with great other massive big tobacco companies, you know, British American Tobacco and Wills Tobacco and, you know, Players and huge big firms, huge. Teddy was really, really small, and it really looked after its workers, you know, really well. A lot of the other tobacco companies didn't. So all the other tobacco companies, the staff went on strike. And even though Teddy looked after its workers, their workers said, look, we're going to have to go out in support of the other workers. And Teddy says, look, if you do that,
I'm finished.
we're going to close down the company. Anyway, the staff thought, I don't know what they thought, whether they thought he was just joking or whatever. They went out on strike and boom. I think it was like 1914, the company folded. You know, he just closed it up and boom. So it's sort of, you know, you collect something and it leads on to stories about.
There's always a story behind the card too, and I think that's part of what it is, you know.
Yeah,
really great, man. I've been trying to get this out of you, but it seems like you love so many of your cards that you don't have a very clear answer. But what are 3 cards that you love in your collection?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I do struggle, you know. Look, it has to be, as you know, I collect cards worldwide, you know, so I've got cards from England, France, you know, Britain and Italy and South Africa, everywhere. But it has to be New Zealand, you know. New Zealand's a real nostalgia for me, you know. I grew up on New Zealand rugby players and the history of New Zealand rugby. So it's probably the 1968 Playtime Gum International Rugby Greats set. I love the look of them. You know, they've got a beautiful teal coloured top with an orange at the base and a nice black and white photo of the player in the middle. You know, bubblegum card size. Players, you know, Colin Meads and the Brian Lahores and the Wilson Winnerays and, you know, amazing players from New Zealand. Hall of Fame, you know, rugby players. Beautiful set, incredible players. That's I guess my absolute favourite set. So certainly not the most expensive. You know, a very average condition one's only probably $10, and a really, really good condition one might be $20. You know, so not massively expensive. Still hard to get, and just beautiful. What would be the others? There's ones. Well, you briefly had a wee look at them. The Whitcomb and Tomb, 1924. The George Napier and Dean.
Great,
and
I like those ones too.
So you know, again, it had sort of Whitcomb and Tomb printed on it. 1924.
Yeah, please tell us the story, because you told it to me before and I was blown away.
Oh, you know, it's one of those ones. You know, I get back to the point we made before about even in this day and age, these things pop up out of the woodwork that you thought didn't even know they existed. You know, and this particular set is absolutely one of those sets. Yeah. So I don't know how long ago, 20 years ago, one of our guys in our card club found. It was in like a junk shop, a basket of ephemera, you know, papers and bits and pieces, and it was all from the Wellington Temperance Union. And then in amongst it, he found these cards, and it was something like 5 or 6 George Napier black and white, very basic cards, about the size of a bubblegum card, and about 3 or 4 Dean's cards. And this was about 20 years ago. No one had ever seen these before at all. And so I managed to sort of pick up one of each of these, you know, over the years off this guy. And then, you know, some years later, on Trade Me, I see another one. It was like Jack Richardson. Holy moly, there's another one. This is incredible. So ended up, paid 105 for it. It was
great.
Oh, that was awesome.
Big money.
It was big money back then, but it was just like, I can't believe I got this card. And it was
I understand that feeling.
Only because someone like in some of these auctions, they describe things so badly because they don't know what they've got.
Yeah, of course.
They don't know.
It was like old rugby card.
Yeah. It was like old black and white card. It was like, oh wow, I can't believe it. And then over the more recent years, I've picked up 2 more different ones. Jack Steele and Cliff Porter. Mm. And, and this is just like, you're kidding. These are 100 years old now. Or certainly next year they'll be 100 years old.
Yeah, wow.
And
you can't find them, right? You were saying like they were...
Never find them.
Yeah.
Never find them.
Like, what were the population counts at the last count that you had?
Wow. So basically, I think the George Napier one's about 7. The Dean's one's about 5. And the other ones, Jack Richardson, the Porter... and the one which I can't remember,
all right, yeah, sure.
is basically the only known examples.
Wow,
the only known examples. No others have popped up.
And you said that recently you've been getting into baseball cards, just like kind of looking into them and that sort of thing. But for mine, like when you think about it, like rugby is our baseball.
Yes.
And so when you see those sorts of cards from that time, cigarette cards as well, from the same amount of time, but. Yep. If you compared it to the T203 Wagner, that sort of thing, there's one. There's one.
I know. Well, this is it, and this is it. Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I just love vintage baseball cards. I've got none, by the way. I've got none, but I love them. The Babe Ruths and the Willie Mays and the Joe DiMaggio's and the Honus Wagner, as you mentioned,
and the Mickey Mantle. I guess
the Mickey Mantle. Oh my word. They're just beautiful, beautiful cards. The 1950s baseball cards, beautiful. But, the Honus Wagner, I can't remember exactly what it went for. Was it around 10 million or whatever it was, And there's 60 to 70 known examples of the Honus Wagner card in America. It's 1911, I think it was put out. Or 1909 to 1911. And there's 60 odd examples, and they're still going for millions. Yet here we are in New Zealand. We've got rugby cards where there's one known example in the world, and you'll probably only just get $200-300 for it.
Yeah, wow.
Supply and demand, I guess.
Nuts,
it is nuts.
Yeah, it just shows you what a beast that American market is.
It's huge.
And the money that they can throw around like that is crazy.
It is mad. It is mad.
Yeah.
But we've got much rarer cards.
And it's fun too. Like you said, and I think, to be honest, like you're already kind of starting to pique my interest in some of these cigarette cards. I don't know if I'm going to be able to collect the sets, but I might just pick out some certain guys that I want. Like, I'm already looking like George Napier, like Maori All Black. Come on, he's a hero, man.
Absolutely. Well, the cool thing with cigarette cards is a weird market in that, as we know, people collect out of nostalgia, don't they? I remember that as a kid, and they'll pick it up later in life. A lot of the people who've collected cigarette cards through nostalgia, they're dying off, as awful as that sounds, And so there's less and less people buying cigarette cards through nostalgia. So prices are actually, unless they're really collectible rare cards or, say, sports cigarette cards, because there's always a market for sports cards. Prices of cigarette cards are really dropping. Unless they're rare, they're actually dropping quite a lot. So they're very affordable. Like this, there's a 1927 set of New Zealand footballers. Lovely set. It's got, Napier in it. Set of 50 cards, black and white photos, 1927. You can pick it up for $50.
Really?
50 to 75.
Well, you just get it at the National?
Yeah. There'll be guys
you're gonna have to hook me up with a couple of these people. I tell you what, I'll be just send me the box. I'll buy it.
Beautiful cards. Really nice. So they're really affordable. Some of these cards.
Cool.
They're not all expensive. It's great.
That's great. I think that's going to be my next wing of rugby cards, because as I told you before, like I collect Lomu and Richie McCoy and Dan Carter, and you have some incredible cards of theirs that I've seen already. The signed Lomu cards that you have, and even the Richie cards, those Weeper cards that you have, they're fantastic. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an idiot. Oh God, I'm almost embarrassed to tell this story. Actually, like super embarrassed. so yeah, obviously in the last 3 years, Sanitarium Weet-Bix here in New Zealand have been putting Weet-Bix. Well, they've actually put cards in their Weet-Bix for many years.
Yeah, sure. I remember getting them too.
Yeah,
I literally bought a packet of Weet-Bix couple of weeks ago because my wife was curious about them.
Yeah.
And I got some cards. I didn't get any rare runs. I just got the commons, of course.
Mad. So basically since 1999, pre-99, there were cards on Weet-Bix, cornflakes, different cereals, and they would be all manner of different topics, hot rod cars or animals or whatever. 99 onwards, it's only been rugby. Only rugby. Only All Blacks, apart from 2010, they did a set of super rugby players as well. They did 2 sets that year, an All Black set and a super rugby set.
Okay.
But the last 3 years, so this year, a set of 42 plus a gold card, the Dan Carter gold card.
Dan Carter gold card.
Limited to 5,000.
Do you have any copies of that one?
I've got, okay. Well, this is where the story gets mental. So... I'm an auditor. That's my job. I audit things, and it's probably why I'm a bit of a collector. I love putting things in boxes and collating and sorting and making.
You're a curator. You're a curator.
It's mental. So I worked out, given the numbers printed, and the number of gold Dan Carter cards there were, and last year the number of Richie gold cards there were, there should be 1 gold card in every 400 boxes of Weet-Bix. This year, I bought more than 1,000 boxes of Weet-Bix. And given that there's 1 Dan Carter card supposedly in every 400 boxes on average, guess how many gold cards I found?
2?
That would be nice. None.
None.
I got none. I found none.
Oh, well, it just leaves more cards for the rest of us to get. So I'm going to have to buy some Weet-Bix.
And you probably saw this blooming Facebook post on one of the sites within the last 2 weeks where one guy opened a box of Weet-Bix and got 2 gold cards in one box.
No.
So I was like, you're joking. And we've got another guy in the card club. Honestly, he buys 20 boxes or 50 boxes and he's found a gold card this year. He found a Richie McCullough gold card last year. And he buys next to none. No boxes. I bought 1,000, got none.
What do you do with the Weet-Bix?
Well, this is... again, this is where it sounds nuts, right? So 1,000 boxes, you're looking at $7,000.
Wow.
Sounds a lot, but I make it self-funding. So what I do is... and the cool thing is the cool thing is the cards are at the bottom of the box.
Yep.
So you can open up the bottom of the box, you can take the cards out, and you're actually your hands are going nowhere near the product, because you open it from the top. So, take the cards out, tape it back up, and then I sell, because I buy them by the carton, these Weet-Bix, there's 8 boxes per carton. And then I'll put them on Facebook Marketplace. So I'll buy a carton for, say, $50. Take the cards out and then resell the carton for $30.
All right.
So I get just over half my money back just by on-selling the Weet-Bix. Of course, you tell them what you've done. I've taken the cards out. No one cares about that. You've gone nowhere near the Weet-Bix. So that's all cool. So I get more than half my money back there. And then in the meantime, I collate the cards into sets. So I build sets. Put them in the boxes, and I sell them on Trade Me for between $60-$70 per set. So it ends up being cost neutral eventually. It takes a while.
Yeah.
So although I spend a lot of money, I get it back, and if I found any gold cards, that'd be just a massive bonus.
Yeah.
Sadly, didn't find any this year.
Oh, wow.
Last year with the Richie McCullough ones, I bought 1,200 boxes. Again, should have had 3, given the averages. got none.
No!
Got none. And honestly, there's people buying one box and finding them, or 10 boxes and finding one. So it's the way stats work, statistics work.
Yeah, well, I bought one box. I did not find the encoder signed code.
So anyway, and the previous year was the Jonah Lomu one. So Richie McCaw, Dan Carter, they produced 5,000 of each of them. The year before that, they did a Jonah Lomu Gold.
Mm-hmm.
And they only printed 500.
Oh, they're only 500?
Only 500. Well, and here's the rub. I never quite got into it as much in that year. So I still probably bought 100 or 200 boxes, but I didn't go as hard out as
you didn't know that every other year was going to be 5,000 rather than 500.
No idea. So what we did was we tracked the Jonah Lomu Gold sales on Trade Me, and all the ones we saw on Facebook sites.
Yeah.
So with all the tracking, we reckon out of the 500 Lomu Golds, only about 10 survived.
No!
Only about 10 survived. So...
Do you have one?
Look, and I go hard out.
Yeah.
Every single one that's appeared has gone for $1,000, and now they're up to $1,500.
Wow!
For a single Weet-Bix card.
Wow!
It's mental. So yeah, it was like, and I think there were a lot of complaints to Sanitarium Weet-Bix, because it was like people
wanted the card,
never had the opportunity. Most of the people mainly buy Weet-Bix, they want the food,
Yeah.
They'll just eat them. Cards at the bottom of the box.
They don't care.
Yeah,
exactly. It's just
straight in the
rubbish,
bin.
yeah.
And so we reckon there's only about, our guesstimate, there's about 10 that have survived. So last year with Richie McCaw, again, being a nerdy old auditor, I kept a spreadsheet.
I love it, man. I love it. I love the numbers and how you're able to figure this out, because, here it's kind of like the Wild West, where you kind of don't have these big groups. So I don't know if you know about Card Ladder in the States.
I have heard of it.
So Card Ladder, what they do is they looking at all recent sales and that sort of thing, and they have population reports with PSA, all this sort of stuff. So they're a big deal. So someone like you is the guy to know. So I'll be sending you messages when I want to buy a card. I'll tell you what.
Good man. Always happy to help. So yeah, look, last year with the Richie McCaws, tracked them all the sales through Trade Me. There were about 110 card sales of Richie McCaws through Trade Me. So a group of us sort of local, rugby card collectors sort of got together, and we, looked at Facebook groups and that sort of thing. Once again, we reckon probably only 250 to 300 McCaws survived out of the 5,000 printed, and probably the same this year. This year's actually there's even been less sales of even though 5,000 printed.
Really? Because there's a few.
Sales.
I've seen the Dan Carter one's been up on Trade Me at the moment.
Yep.
I just don't know. In fact, I should ask you, how much do you think it would be going for one now? It's hard to say, because I've seen the numbers and I'm looking at the sales as well myself.
So they're all around the 150 mark at the moment.
Bucks.
150 mark. Last year, and like I say, there's been so far there's been less Dan Carter cards going on Trade Me this year than last year. So last year the McCaws started off at 400. As they sort of came onto the market,
Definitely, sure. The new card price, sure.
Went down to 80.
Wow.
And then sort of going back up again towards the very end, up to sort of around 130. But obviously, in the last year, there's probably been just one or two McCaw card sales. So they're going to go back up. They will definitely start going back up on price.
So you can just find the sales data about Trade Me sales, is that right? Is that how you do it?
No, I actually had to, every day I'd log in, and every day I'd be searching for these cards. So it's quite difficult to go back. Like on eBay, what is it? It's like 130 point.
130 point does the eBay sales,
You can track previous sales. Trade Me doesn't have anything like that, sadly.
Yeah.
So I had to physically every day or every second day go in and try and, look at what was for sale.
Sure.
So right through the whole promotion.
Mm-hmm.
So so at the moment there's been less cards on there. The promotion's now finished really, so there may still be a few more pop up, but I reckon 150. If you can get one for around the 150 mark, you're doing well.
Yeah.
I can't see them dropping much below that.
Yeah.
And give it another year, they'll start shooting up again.
Gotcha.
That's my
No. I obviously trust your judgment. I mean, you're the one who's been watching the market, so you have...
Foolish man, trusting my judgment.
Oh, that's fun, man. It's been fun to chat about those sorts of things. So you said, we've probably already answered this question, but I want to go back at it again. Like, are there other specific cards that you are still chasing? So you were chasing the Dan card and you still don't have it yet?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is I just got one in the last week.
Oh, perfect.
$153 I paid. But,
Nice.
But I am chasing more. So a couple of people have asked me to try and chase them. Well, I won for them as well.
All right.
But as you saw, I got up to owning 11 Richie McCaws by the end of it, because I just kept buying. I knew they'd be limited,
Yeah.
And I know they're going to go up. And
it's a good story for these other card markets that have limited numbers of cards too.
Yeah.
They're old 90s basketball cards, and they have a very limited print run of certain cards. Like there's these cards called PMGs, and they have a print run of 100 cards that have been printed in either red. There's 90 red ones and 10 green ones. And so those cards are ridiculously rare. And so there's people who've spent countless hours just trying to track them down, find them, and there's still some missing. But who knows if they're ever going to surface?
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. It's mental, and especially a market. This probably America we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Because the market's so big, the demand for those will be massive. So those cards will be worth a fortune.
Oh, they're worth millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And like the last known sale of this, one of the green ones, which was out of 10, is, I want to say that they're predicting that could be like $5 or $6 million for those. It's nuts.
It is nuts. And whether we talk about it later, but. This sort of part of the card market, or what companies are doing now, it sort of makes me feel a bit weird. These limited numbered cards. It's like creating this rarity, aren't they? Just deliberately printing this rarity. But whether we'll get onto that, but it's mental, the rarity. So the cards I'm after, like that. One of my favourite sets is this 1930s Sweet Acres chewing gum card set. Okay. Set of 30 in New Zealand. And even to this day, there's still one card that we don't know about. We don't know, card number 7. We have no one, even the biggest card collectors I know, no one has seen or got card number 7. Probably out there somewhere, but we still haven't found it. Even almost 100 years later, So yes, card number 7 I need of Sweet Acres.
I love this kind of found treasure story. Hoping that might happen next May. We'll see.
It does happen. It really does. And I'll tell you what I picked up last time. But what else? I mean, there's lots of cards. There's certainly a bunch of old cigarette cards that I still need, like the Teddy ones we mentioned before. There's a whole bunch of those I still need.
Sure.
Newport Rugby Club in England, really rare set. And even there's a lot of provincial card sets. So Southland are really good at putting out cards. Otago Rugby Union, really excellent at putting out cards. Canterbury, they're okay at putting them out. But there's certain, Bay of Plenty, really good for putting out cards. So even some of these modern rugby union cards put out since, say, 2000 onwards, often we find out about these cards too late, because they're just, they'll be issued, no one knows about them, because no one's collecting in the area. And then the following year, someone will go, oh, this Bay of Plenty card's turned up on Trade Me. And all of us are going, what the beep? We didn't even know this card existed. So suddenly, boom, this thing. And because these cards are printed in such limited numbers, because they're just for a wee small provincial area, trying to get some of these provincial union cards is impossible. North Otago Rugby put out a set once. You cannot get it for love nor money, So there's even some semi-modern cards that, people still want, some of these Bay of Plenty sets, I might have 20 of the 40, but it'll still looking for, and every card you find, oh my gosh, I just picked up card number 12. Woohoo! So it's tons.
Great. Yeah. That's great. So what are two things that you still enjoy about card collecting?
Oh, wow. What do I enjoy? I mean, just the chase.
Yeah.
Number one, I love the chase.
I'm with you.
The moment you've got an album with a few gaps in it, and if you can just fill one of those gaps.
Yeah.
I don't know why, it's just this really good feeling, like, yes. It feels like you've achieved something. I mean, it's a little bit of cardboard, it's crazy, but it actually feels like you've achieved something. Yeah, And chances are, if I filled a gap in, it's probably something that not many other people have, if I've been, so having something someone else doesn't have, as awful as that sounds, that's sort of slightly satisfying.
No, I completely understand where you're coming from. You've literally seen the card that's the jewel in my crown. This boy here he is. I obviously purchased that one recently, so that one is that chase was absolutely thrilling. Like that whole week, I was
pumped,
buzzing. Man. I was just, but it was even before I bought it. Like I was watching that just every day, just checking it multiple times. When is this card going up? And I knew in the last hour it's going to go nuts. And not even the last hour, it was the last 15 minutes. It was scary.
I was watching it, man. Watching it.
Oh, wow.
And like I was saying, you beat out a couple of the deepest pocket, biggest rugby card collectors that I know.
Well, I'm not going to be repeating that too often, I tell you what. It was just like, I have to have this one. Like you were saying before, like when cards don't come up very often for sale, that's when like you got one shot at it, and if you don't take it, then you're not going to get it. And that's what it was for me. I was like, do I take this shot? And I was literally pacing up and down the living room, holding the phone in my hand, just like, do I do it? And I was like, I got to do it. I got to do it.
Yeah.
And I absolutely think it's worth it. Looking at it live, you just see it shine. It's gorgeous, isn't it?
Beautiful card. And Lommy, obviously a worldwide GOAT, as far as rugby goes. Super rare card. Oh, yeah. Crown of anyone's collecting.
Yeah, that's what it is. Man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
the chase is one thing. What's something else that you still enjoy?
As corny as this sounds, the people you meet.
Yeah, I you know what? I think I said this in a previous podcast when my friend asked me the same question.
Yep.
Those are the two answers I gave. The thrill of the chase and meeting really, really nice people.
Oh, man. We're lucky, certainly in our card club. And being part of a card club, a physical card club.
Yeah.
Facebook sites are great. There's amazing things can be found and information obtained and all that sort of thing through Facebook.
Sure.
Our card club, because we have an AGM every year in a different part of the country, our collectors actually come together. So you'll have 30 or 40 guys from the club, or guys, I say guys and gals, we all come together because we go out for dinner one night and
That's so cool.
meet up. And these are like, I've been in the club lots of years now. And these guys, some of them are my closest friends. Whenever I'm travelling around the country, I'll go and stay at their house or they'll stay at my house. This chap, I don't know if I mentioned it here or earlier, Val he was one of the chasers of your amazing crown jewel there. Val from Australia, he will have the biggest rugby card collection in the world. Absolutely amazing collection, So he sort of started out a wee bit after me, but past me, he's surpassed me as far as that's volume of cool cards.
That's a massive statement because I've seen your cards.
But he's such a cool guy, man. He is such a cool guy. So I've stayed at his house a few times whenever he comes, and he used to come over to New Zealand every year, every AGM. He would come over and hang out, and he's such a laugh, he's such a neat guy. We'd go on road trips, travel up there to the AGMs. So just the people you meet, we have some really cool rugby card collectors and cool collectors in general.
Yeah.
But, for me, the rugby card collectors in our club, just awesome.
Yeah, that's great, man.
Awesome guys.
That's so cool. What's one thing you would change about card collecting, or specifically maybe even just specific to rugby card collecting? What's something that you would like to see change? I wonder if you're going to give the same answer as me.
Oh, man. Rugby cards. Probably, I guess one is solely rugby cards. One might be just cards in general. So I guess rugby cards, we've always struggled to have new cards issued. Yeah, we've had rugby clubs put out sets. We've had breakfast cereal companies, and they're all really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But a consistent supply of top quality trading cards from a top trading card company, you know, like league do and cricket do.
Yeah.
Rugby's so hit and miss, you know. For whatever reason, companies seem to start up, they'll run a couple of years and then go under.
Yeah.
You know, and there's big 5 to 10 year gaps between companies, you know. So a semi-consistent supply of trading card issues would be cool, because there's nothing better than buying boxes of cards or cases.
Oh yeah.
And opening it up, looking for the specials and the autograph cards and the, you know, that sort of thing. So that would be cool. As far as rugby cards go, I guess one thing I don't like about card collecting, and I'll give an example, and we touched on it, and that's this invented rarity of cards. The parallels.
Yeah.
And the
rainbow parallels of basketball cards is just, it's too much.
Yeah, blue foils, green foils, pink foils, you know, what are they, you know, the chromes and the this, that and the other. There was a set put out in 2016, Topps, Allen and Ginter cards. And had all different sports and that sort of thing.
Yep, I know exactly the sets you're talking about.
Yep.
Allen Ginter's very, very popular.
Yeah, so some people probably know, but Allen and Ginter was actually a late 1800s cigarette card company, put out 1880s, that sort of thing. So I've sort of pinched the name.
Which is why I think even the design looks very cigarette card-esque.
Yeah, very cool. But so I'm a completist, and that's probably one thing I really enjoy, because being a completist, you've got to have every different rugby card. It always gives me something to chase. I've calmed down a wee bit on the completist thing, but I used to be so hardcore you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, really.
Chasing cards, ridiculous. But the trouble is with these new sets, and the example is this Allen and Ginter one, is this set of 150 sports people and other you know, cool people. There were 3 rugby cards in the set, 3 USA rugby players.
They're American. No wonder why I've never heard of it.
Yeah,
never heard of it.
So they were John Moonlight, Phil Test, and Zach Test, Phil Mack, Zach Test. Anyway, three of these rugby guys, which is fine. Woohoo! Now the trouble is, with parallels for each of those players, there were 51 different variations in parallels.
That's too many. That's way too many.
Of which around 10 of them were one-of-ones.
Oh.
So it's like, I'm a completist. There's no way. There's probably no way I'll get one of the one-of-ones, let alone, 10. So, I mean, that's where it's just like, oh, you're joking, guys. You're just creating this rarity. You're creating these massive gaps in people's collections.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I don't like, is this invented rarity,
Yeah, that's absolutely fair, I think. What I would probably prefer is have some numbered cards, have some rare ones, but don't go over the top with it until someone can't collect them all.
That's it. Make it slightly
and you know what, a one-of-one might be someone where someone just goes, you know what, I can't get that card, that's cool.
Yep.
At least I'll have the base card and the parallel to $9.99 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
At least that way they've got a chance of semi-completing that set.
So I've certainly got a whole bunch of them, including some 1 of 8s and 1 of 10s and 1 of 25s.
Yeah, cool.
but I've got no one-of-ones. It's just oh my word.
Well, you got no one of ones of the Allen and Ginter. Yeah,
No.
other one of ones.
I'm not another one-of-ones, but but certainly not of these modern trade.
Well, you have that. You have the authentic rarity where there's never been another known copy of it.
Yeah.
Unless someone digs into a pharaoh's tomb of some sort in some way. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool.
We're sort of a bit lucky here in that, in the States, obviously, if you've got rare basketball, baseball, football cards, there's huge demand for them. In New Zealand, there's demand. There's absolutely demand. Sure. Nothing like America. So when America issue these, the Allen and Ginter limited to 8,
Yeah.
I can still get one because there's still not quite the rugby card collector market over here. It's growing.
Do you think that it's going to take off down the line? I have a feeling like for mine, if I were to pick a market that might jump first, I think it might be cricket cards.
Right.
My buddy and I have been talking about it. He's like, look, what's one of the most strong markets that's emerging? It's India.
Right.
What's their favorite sport? It's cricket.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So sooner or later, I think those early cricket cards are going to pop.
Yes.
But I feel like rugby has become so popular in Europe lately that there's got to be a company that's going to be out there producing new ones soon.
Sure.
I'm hoping that comes true. Your wish for a top card production company like Topps. Probably ironic that I said it. Hopefully they don't do match attacks. Hopefully they do a good solid set of cards and print them out and then we can, like you say, buy cases and split cases, whatever you want to do. I'll be into it.
Get back into it. Yeah. It's funny, mentioning that because certainly in the last, again, because I've sort of written the book and I've become, as funny as that sounds, semi go-to guy, as far as
definitely. You're my go-to guy, man. I'm going to be asking you way too many questions. You're going to say, well, just give me a break.
Mate. But actually there's been quite a bit of interest in the last, say, 18 months from Canada, collectors in Canada, collectors in the States, who are starting to now pick up, and you've probably seen it yourself now with some of these Jonah cards getting graded.
Yeah, sure.
They're picking up the goats, the Dan Carters, or they're asking me for the Dan Carters, the Richie McCaws, and the Jonah Lomus.
Yeah, sure.
In particular. And I've even got some queries now about our good old greats, the Colin Meads.
Yeah, wow.
So I think overseas they're starting to look at, where is this market going? What is the next big thing that's undervalued right now? So, it could be happening. It could be happening.
Wow. Yeah. That's really cool. That's really very, very cool. Do you have anything else to say before we go? In fact, I do want you to kind of just tell listeners where we can find you, how we can contact you, and how we can, if they want to buy your book too. And
I don't know if I want them to know. Well, listen, it's one of those weird things where I help out with the Card Club magazine, and we put it out every 3 months.
Okay,
fantastic magazine. If you want the magazine, go to just Google Card Collectors New Zealand, and it will take you to a website for the Card Club in New Zealand. Anyway, and there's a 300 card lot auction in the magazine every quarter. But between that and me writing the book, time. If there's one thing I don't have much of, time.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Absolutely terrible. But look, hey, if you want to get hold of me, get me on jockmac at gmail.com. So it's JOKMACK at gmail.com. You can always contact me through there, really. Yeah.
Sure. Are we able to pick up copies of the book?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if for example, if somebody emailed you, would you be able to send them a copy?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. The biggest problem we have here in New Zealand is postage.
Sure.
It's terrible. So you're looking at, because it's I don't know if it looks much or not, but basically it's about a kilo weight-wise. So it costs about $25.
For postage?
Just postage, 25 New Zealand dollars.
Yeah, okay.
For postage, so it's not cheap.
And how much is the book itself?
The book itself, look, you know what? For people who mention you on your podcast,
sure.
you know what? Let's do $10.
Wow.
$10, 10 New Zealand dollars.
That's great.
How's that? So, so that's 2008. You mentioned before I'm working on I was working on a second edition. I thought, I'll get one out every 2 years. Well,
Too hard, huh?
Well, now that the internet's here, so it really started kicking off in the late 90s, 2000s. Information is thick and fast. And so this was 288 pages. I'm already up to 200 pages on the next book. And the next book has completely different cards.
Really?
Completely different cards. So it's not like I'm adding, if there were additions to these sets or corrections or additions, I'm including them. But I'm not having the same cards in there. So this is 200 pages of new cards that I've discovered and old cards discovered. But that is so far from being finished. I thought, right, you know what? I need to get out something.
Yeah.
People they've been waiting too long. So I'm actually doing a book, and it's going to be out by May.
So it's going to be ready for the national.
It's going to be ready for that. That's my goal.
Yeah, you're going to launch it there, huh?
Launch it there, and it's just New Zealand cards. So I'm just doing a New Zealand only book, and that's all cards,
all New Zealand,
all
cards.
New Zealand. Sorry, all New Zealand rugby cards.
All New Zealand rugby,
New Zealand rugby cards. But even that's going to be reasonably sizable.
Wow.
Out of all cards, so there's something like 900, almost 1,000 sets that contain rugby cards, different sets from different countries. And of those, about a quarter to a third of them come out of New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's surprising.
Yeah, we do a lot of cards in New Zealand.
Like you said, we're collectors, aren't we? Yeah. We like collecting cards specifically,
Yep. South Africa and England, probably the next two biggest issuers of rugby cards. Yeah.
Wow.
France are actually, they've got a lot of older cards in France. 1920s, a lot of old cards.
Yeah, I've seen some like the hand drawn ones. There's some of those too.
Amazing.
Right,
yeah, lovely old vintage cards. But then they've got the likes of Panini.
The Italian ones.
So so sort of from 2000. I mean, there were some in 1960s and that sort of thing, but really from 2007, 2008 onwards, they issue, or Merlin, like Panini stickers, that sort of thing. Huge, but 400 plus rugby card sets.
Really?
Every year, yeah. So they're huge in modern France.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's, massive sets. So anyway, so hopefully by May 2024, I'll have a New Zealand rugby card book.
That's awesome.
Available.
That's great.
Hopefully.
Well, I'm glad to be the one to first interview about that and hopefully get that out there. And hopefully this will be able to reach some people who are interested. And again, please feel free to contact Justin, and we can see how we do.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, very good.
Awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a lot of fun. Definitely gone way over time from what I expected. I was thinking going to be 20 minutes, so we might need to cut a little bit out. But it is what it is. It's a really fun chat, and I'm sure we're going to have more of these too.
Awesome, brilliant.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Cheers, buddy.